What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. After Sound here, bringing you Splinterlands content every single day. We also stream right here on this channel every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday morning, so come by and say hello. All right, guys, let's talk about the dilemma of the SPS distribution. And I would say that this is probably the biggest problem that is plaguing the game at this point. I should say the game economy, right? Because the game is different. The team is taking care of that and trying to improve the game experience. But from a game economy standpoint, this is something that has just made probably every asset in the game tank, as well as made a lot of players leave, because I know players might have left because of the soulbound rewards, but really nobody would care about soulbound rewards if SPS was sitting at 30 cents right now, right? People would be like, oh, soulbound rewards are fine because I'm getting paid a boatload in terms of SPS. But that's not the case, because we've had just issue after issue after issue, compounded by a lot of other changes that we've made along the way. Now, I'm not trying to sit here and say it's been all bad, although, you guys can draw your own conclusion. I'm just trying to diagnose where we're at and then look at the potential, not problems, but potential solutions that people have proposed, and why it truly is we're stuck between a rock and a hard place in many ways. So let's dive into it. Okay. First part, utility for SPS came in way too late. And it came in and it was too little, right? Like even now, I think that there's more and better utility for SPS, but I would still like to see more direct utility, because DEC just keeps getting pummeled. And whenever DEC is below peg, that, all of that indirect utility going to SPS is never going to get there, right? And we're seeing that now. For the past 4 months, DEC has not been at peg. Now, on top of that, we have also been giving out SPS like candy for a bunch of distribution faucets that made no sense, just to appease people because they bought assets, right? I'm thinking land, I'm thinking node licenses, and I'm thinking Soulkeep, for example, right? Those are probably the three that come to mind right away, that were just, here's a promise of something in the future, and to to keep people happy, we're just going to give it away, right? We're just going to open these faucets and essentially flood the market with more SPS, making it even less worthwhile, or less worth. So that's something that definitely compounded the problem further. So we find ourselves in the situation where we actually have, more than half of the distribution done already, right? 1.4 billion, or actually close to 1.5 billion, which is technically half. But keep in mind that there's over 120 million that has been burned already. So we're probably closer to 1.6 billion. We'll just say like 1.6 billion. So we're more than halfway through the distribution phase. And this leads me to, okay, what are the solutions here, right? What are people proposing? How do we go about this? Now, there's a proposal currently in place, and it doesn't look like it's going to pass, but we've definitely heard this from many people before about just reducing the overall supply, right? There's supposed to be 3 billion tokens. What if we just cut out 500 million or 1 billion, and just have it where 2 billion is the new max? And then all of a sudden we're like more than 75%, almost 80% of the way through the distribution phase. That could be interesting, right? But again, that's one solution that people propose. Another one is an SPS halving, because if we reduce the amount of prizes that people are getting, we can extend the runway for the DAO in terms of rewards, and then just have it be where as SPS gains value over time, right? Well, think about it similar to like the Bitcoin halving, right? After each halving, you would hope and expect that the price would go up accordingly, right? Because demand would continue to stay the same, supply would decrease, and you go with that whole thing. But keep in mind, the reason that I never like that is because SPS is not Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin people actually want. Bitcoin people actually see the value and utility for. SPS they don't. Even though there is some utility in game, there's too much freaking supply out in the ecosystem for the current player base, which is continuing to shrink day by day, sadly. So this puts us in what I say is like the dilemma, right? Because we have too much supply and we have a ton more supply coming. The price is already tanked, right? We're below a penny, which I don't think even in the wildest dreams of many of the bears out there, people, I mean, actually, I'm sure that the bears had tons of dreams of it being below a penny, but it's at a point where we don't know what to do, and there's no good place for us to go except getting new players, which is what the team is focused on doing. But they're going to focus on that. I'm not going to comment on that. That is really going to be like the saving grace of this if they can continue to do that. If they fail, though, or if it's not as effective or takes a lot longer, we need to look at this and figure out how do we move forward from here. Because, and this is finally getting to the dilemma part, what ends up happening is we need to reduce the amount of SPS dilution that is happening. I mean, we already need to get rid of a ton of SPS that's out there in the ecosystem, right? There's 1.472 billion out there, 800 million of which is staked, which is good, right? But 500 million of which is liquid. And I know that's not all out there. Some of that liquid is technically in the DAO or in LPs, but we need to get rid of that first. And then we need to actually stop or slow down many of the faucets that are on. But the dilemma comes in with the only way that we can attract people into the space, or maybe even more importantly, keep people in the space, is if you have very good rewards. Now, for myself in Wild, for example, I'm playing Wild Champ 3, sometimes getting into Champ 2. I'm making 5, 6 SPS. It's not anything crazy, right? I mean, especially with SPS at half a penny, right? We're talking about like 3 cents a win that I'm getting. It's not anything massive. But there are people, especially in Modern, that are earning 30, 40, 50 SPS per game. And that is what we need, especially if we can get SPS up to a penny, up to 5 cents, up to 10 cents, right? Those are the games in which we can then draw people in by saying, hey, some of the top players in this game, they're winning 50 SPS per game, right? And SPS is at 10 cents. Like, that's $5 a game, $5 a win, right? That's the type of stuff that gets people in. That allows us to have our Axie Infinity moment. But at the same time, and this is going back, right? At the same time, we're just giving out too much SPS. So where do you draw the line? Where do you stop some of that inflation? We did some of that, for the LPs, for example, and SPS tanked, right? Because everybody who's holding SPS and LPs decided, well, I'm not going to get any value from it now, so let me just sell it on the market. Maybe some people staked it, but it's definitely not been a good sign. Now we're moving forward with, what's this called? Potentially like a voucher proposal. Sorry, a node license proposal. Sorry, it is a voucher proposal that would remove them from node licenses. So all of a sudden that would potentially devalue node licenses, which in a way is not directly affecting, right? Because then the value and price of node licenses would go down. But ultimately we need more of those node licenses to sell, right? That doesn't necessarily translate over to SPS directly, but again, we're just talking about the market taking hit after hit after hit. So I don't know where to take it out. I mean, I have some ideas. I have some radical ideas, and I'll save that for a separate video. But my whole point is that we're stuck between this rock and hard place because we need to curb the inflation. We need to curb the dilution that is happening and slow it down to a point where we, A, get rid of the supply that's out there, and then B, create it so the actual amount of SPS coming out is appropriate for the player base that is currently here, so that we're constantly needing to burn it, right? We shouldn't just be getting it and accumulating it. It should be something where it's just like, as soon as I get SPS, I need to burn it because I want to go do something in the game, level up my guild, pay for the wild pass, buy some cards, rent some SPS, whatever the case is. I need to be able to do that and burn SPS, not sell it, right? But burn it, and do that so much so that if I don't get enough SPS, right, from my winnings, I need to go out and buy it, right? And we don't even need to get that far, because keep in mind, just market transactions, market activity will force the team to do that, right? So even if I'm deciding to hang on to a bunch of SPS, but there's just a minimum amount, a scarce amount that's out there, the team will trigger the flywheel just because of the fact that there's a ton of market activity happening. But until we can get that down, until we can get to a nice point of equilibrium, which I'll admit is we are so far from right now, because there's too much DEC in the system, and there's too many cards that are going to get burned for DEC. So it's like we're in this weird zone here where until the team can bring in new players, right? If and when they can bring in new players, that's really the only option. I don't know what just happened here. That's really the only thing that can help the game economy. Otherwise, like, I really don't even know how to value or quantify, I should say, the amount of value that needs to come into the game to offset this. And what we're doing is essentially just making up for all the bot farms. We're still paying for that, right? We're still paying for the sins of the SPS airdrop, right? So at the end of the day, like, I don't even know. 200 million DEC is what I think the overhang is right now. That's $200,000 at PEG, right? Obviously, we're not at PEG, but keep in mind. But, you know, even just looking at how many reward cards are out there, I mean, that's going to be hundreds of millions of more DEC. So we're talking probably, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even $1 million, right, of value that would need to come into the game. And I don't think the current player base is going to do it, which is why the team is throwing this Hail Mary and hoping that they can get a bunch of new players to come in. Because if it's just the current players, I mean, we'd all need to spend thousands of dollars, and I don't think that's going to be happening. But if you get thousands of players that only need to spend, you know, $10, $20, $50, it's much more likely, it's much easier on the individual player. So I kind of digress into the whole new player thing. My whole point with this is just, we need to reduce and curb inflation. But the moment you do that, you reduce incentives one way or another. And like I said, I'll do a separate video kind of focusing on where I think we should reduce inflation. I mean, I've talked about some of this stuff in the past, and, you know, definitely got an interesting feedback from folks. So, but I think that it calls for it even more so now. It's just in the areas in which where people are able to earn for participating. And that's probably the important part. If I give you a little bit of a teaser there, it's where people are participating that I think they should be earning something for or SPS. But everywhere else, it's like, I don't know, man. So that's all I have for you guys in this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You know, again, I know there's a lot of folks out there who are proponents for, let's get the supply out and over with, or let's do some kind of halving to extend it, right? Let's cut off certain inflation points. Let's pay more, maybe. I don't know what opinions you guys have, but let me know your thoughts on how you think we should navigate this moving forward. Like I said, I'll do a separate video kind of focusing in on where I think we should cut back and some radical ideas that I've had to really curb inflation to the point where we would feel it, and maybe not in the best way, but it would be good for the game economy in the long run. So that is all I have for you guys in this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll catch you all in the next one and see you around the game. Take care.